This is John for MTG Nexus coming at you with another kind of burn or prowess explanation video. There was a series of questions that people ask in response to a community post page about questions people had for prowess and burn. One of the questions was what kind of one-landers can be kept in a prowess deck. Now, obviously there are several types of prowess decks. There is It Prowess, there is traditional Mono Red Prowess, and then the one we've been kind of focusing on the most lately are the various Hayashi prowess decks. Most of what I've been working on with Hayashi's decks have been most based around something similar to this. So this is the kind of one that I'm going to focus on, and I'm going to do a little bit more of a broad answer to a question and like keep in Mulligan hands. There's a feature here on Magic Online that not many people use. We're going to be using in this video to kind of take a look at opening hands. Obviously this won't be pre-sideboarded games, so everything will be taken with a grain of salt. But as far as this build, this is the 12-1 drop Obosh, the Prey Piercer version, the kind that was right before Zendikar Rising, so there's none of the double-faced mana cards. You just have Blister Coil Weird, Soulscar Mage, and Monster Swiss Spirit, along with the plethora of one-drop burn spells. You know, Burst, Lightning, Firebolt, Lava Dart, Lightning Bolt. There's no Flame Slashes or anything. And then you have the 3 drops in the form of Seasoned Pyromancer, Bone Crusher Giant, Layup Stage. Obviously we're stuck on odds because of Obosh. Once again, this is probably not an optimal build right now, but just an example of, you know, taking a look at some Mulligan hands and seeing what we would do with them. Alright, taking a look at our opening hand, number 1. This hand is an interesting hand. I guess we can do player draw. It really doesn't particularly matter, as the way this is set up, you just automatically draw a card on your first turn. Both on the play and on the draw, this hand is pretty functional. You know, we have a bunch of 1-drops. We have a Pyromancer when we draw a 3rd land to kind of churn some value. The one weakness of this kind of hand is lack of prowess triggering things. Once again, you know, our deck is kind of chock full of those, so it isn't going to draw those. So we're going to go ahead and keep this hand and just pretend that whatever card we drew here we'll draw next turn, as if we were on the play. It doesn't really matter which one we lead on. Soulscar Mage has the slight value of, while it is a higher, I guess I should say, a more likely to be hit target, it does have the advantage of, you know, it doesn't die to Lava Dart of all things. You know, not a huge reason to lead on this one over Blister Coil Weird. Plus, it also wouldn't die to something like Run in 6. Here on this turn, I'm not going to go completely through the game, you know, as this is mainly a Mulligan video. But as far as the progressions, you want to lead on Swift Spear probably last. Played out the land because I'm just planning on playing 2 1-drops. We would attack with Soulscar Mage, you know, do the thing. Play out our non-hasty threats. You know, the only downside with this mode is you know all the life totals come out of the same thing. So, and then Swift Spear is what we would have drawn this turn. Burst Lightning, not a card we would see. It's a card we would see off Light Up the Stage. So, for mana efficiency, I think we actually go Burst Lightning into Light Up the Stage rather than playing whatchamacallit here. Well, looks like Light Up the Stage is going to be a little bit awkward in this mode. We play Light Up Stage, see a couple of cards, bash for a bunch, and then still have Seasoned Pyromancer and such left over. So, definitely an interesting opening hand. Not really that interesting of an opening hand. Pretty solid, reasonable hand. So, let's go on to the next hand. Taking a look at this opening hand, once again we're going to have the awkwardness with Light Up the Stage in terms of sequencing and such, but you know, this hand overall is pretty solid. We have Blister Coil Weird in the Swift Spear plus Bolt, or Blister Coil Weird in the Swift Spear plus Light Up the Stage, 3 lands. Pretty solid keep overall. Another Light Up the Stage. This hand would develop quite nicely. The one weakness of this hand would be the opponent, you know, dealing with both of our creatures. We attack here. Wish this version will allow us to cast Light Up the Stage, but get the general idea. You know, this hand would develop pretty nicely. Cast Lutz, see a bunch more cards. Next turn, even if they deal with both of our creatures, bolt, cast another light up the stage. Overall, not that interesting of a hand, once again, as far as mulligan decisions. You know, you generally want to keep a 2 or 3 lander and some amount of spells and interaction. So, on to the next. Now, this is the kind of hand that Puppa Joe wanted to kind of take a look at. You know, it's a 1-lander. So the look of this hand is kind of interesting, right? So if we're on the play, this hand is like Blister Coil Weird into light up the stage potentially. You know, the downside of this hand is the fact that if we do miss, we could be in some problems in deploying these 2 spells, or light up the stage if we need a second land to trigger it. That said, we do have a couple of copies of spells to interact with early opponent's creatures. So let's take a look to see how this hand kind of plays out. I guess we could pretend we're on the play. I think on the draw, this hand's a lot less of a gamble. Once again, pretending we don't have this Lava Dart until next turn. And so this is a hand that didn't develop quite well. I mean, Lutz here would like kind of allow us to do the thing. And then, so bolt is what we drew this turn, right? So Lutz would be. So we would draw the second land off of the Lutz. So this hand would have played out depending on what our opponent did. You know, we would have drawn the second land here on turn 3 or turn 2 with the Lutz. If they didn't interact with the Blister Coil Weird, but that's certainly a hand that could have paid off poorly. If we were on the draw, I think that hand was a much more defensible keep. But once again, that's the kind of hand that's like borderline. If it's on the draw, I think that hand was a keep. If it's on the play, I do think that's a mull. Although you definitely have to ask M. Hayashi specifically, as far as this build of the deck. He has much more experience with these style of prowess decks, but I do think on the play that was maybe a mull, and on the draw it was a keep. Hand number 4 here, not really a whole lot to take a look at. You have 1 drop into Firebolt plus a couple 3 drops. I think this hand overall, both on the play and on the draw, is a hand that you definitely keep. Just for variety's sake, I'm not going to really cover this hand. I'm going to mulligan this hand, even though obviously this is a hand we would keep and it has pretty good progression of Monastery Swiftspear into Bone Crusher Giant, cast Bone Crusher Giant, or Monastery Swiftspear into Firebolt plus whatever we draw. So I'm going to mulligan this hand, even though this is a hand I would keep. This hand, say on a mulligan to 6, is perfectly fine. We probably put back, I would guess, Lava Dart or Lightning Bolt here. Keep, put back, let's just say Lava Dart for, you know, whatever reason, presuming we don't draw this Soul Scar Mage until next turn. Cast the... Okay, so draw land. Next turn, just do the progression of hit for some damages. And you get the idea, just kind of doing the thing. But once again, we're here more for mulligans, so let's go on to the next. Now here's an interesting hand. This hand obviously has no 1-drop creatures, but it is a 2-lander that is going to deal us some damage. The argument for this particular hand is the fact that we have 20 creatures, and we have plenty of interaction for any type of thing our opponent's doing, as well as a copy of Lay Up the Stage. I do believe on both the play and in the draw this would be a keep. This is a hand that could obviously flip over some cards, so we're going to go ahead and keep pretending we're on the play this game, I guess. Blister Coil Weird we draw next turn, so we're just going to pass the turn. Blister Coil Weird, another one we draw. Just cast Blister Coil Weird here, and hold up like some type of spell to interact with our opponent. So that would be something we would draw next turn or off the layup stage. And you see how, you know, we have so many creatures, and there's a good chance our opponent could interact with a Blister Coil Weird. Not the most powerful or resilient creature, obviously. Can't really protect it with our spells that well. You'd have to cast like 3 spells to protect it from most bolt effects and such, which obviously, you know, in the layup stage here, this hand developed quite nicely. But I thought this was a hand worth taking a look at simply because we didn't have a creature in our opener, even though the rest of the hand was pretty solid overall. Taking a look at this hand has kind of the opposite problem of 4-lander. Even with Blister Coil Weird, Monster, Swift Spear, even if we were on the draw, this hand does have plenty of aggression, but will run out of gas pretty quickly. Like, you know, progression of turn 1 Blister Coil Weird, turn 2 Bolt, Monster, Swift Spear plus Bolt obviously hits for, you know, 2, 4, 7. So it would hit for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then if we were to draw more spells, it'd be great. But, you know, unless you hit a Seasoned Pyromancer or a layup stage, I think this hand, both on the play and the draw, would be a mulligan. This hand's interesting, but would be very good. I think your put back in this hand would be either a Blister Coil Weird or one of the 2 spells. I think from a perspective, I think I would keep this and put back Blister Coil Weird. And then lay up the stage obviously would be a nice follow-up. Just play Swift Spear. Play Swift Spear. And then we play light up the stage here most likely. See a couple extra cards, kind of go to town there. But yeah, that progressed quite nicely for a mulligan to 6. So take a look at one more hand, see if we can't get a 1-lander here somewhere in this. So on to the next hand. Alright, taking a look at this hand, obviously. It's a no-lander, we can't keep it, so pretty easy mulligan. This hand is a keep, I think. Put back either a Mountain or a Seasoned Pyro. I think we put back a Seasoned Pyro. You know, lead on the progression of Soulscar Mage. We draw that. We just play out our dudes. And swing for the fences here. Seasoned Pyro, we get to the Bone Crusher Giant, go on. So, I mean, obviously maybe putting back a 3rd land was wrong. Maybe you're supposed to lean towards keeping lands with this version. Maybe we're supposed to put back the Pyro. Kind of hard to say in that situation, but I do think it was worth taking a look at as to which card we're supposed to mulligan. Gonna keep going until we get at least one more 1-lander. Taking a look at this hand, obviously double lay at the stage Bolt, not particularly good. This is a fairly easy mulligan. This hand's interesting from the standpoint of we have a 1-lander or 2-lander here with a bunch of high-cost spells. I think the putback's either Bone Crusher or Seasoned Pyro. I think I'd put back Bone Crusher at this hand. You know, because we have Lava Dart plus whatever. Even we were pretending we'd cast Soulscar Mage here if we were on the draw. You know, and then we get to go you know, Soulscar, attack, lay up a stage. So this hand developed quite nicely for a mulligan to 6, but once again we're hunting for that kind of elusive 1-lander that Puppa Joe asked us about. So let's go on to another hand. This hand is quite good. 1-drop, 1-drop, 1-drop. Bone Crusher Giant into you know, casting Bone Crusher Giant. Once again we're looking for a 1-lander, so we're going to mulligan this hand. Once again, this hand is a keep, has nice progression, but we're in a mulligan looking for a 1-land hand. This hand isn't a 1-lander, but effectively is in some regards. Castle Embereth is a little bit slow, so the progression of this hand is quite interesting. I do think on the draw this hand would be a keep. It is one argument against Castle Embereth in this thing. I think the putback would be one of the 1-drops, ironically. Maybe Blister Coil Weird, just because it's the weakest of the batch. May seem kind of weird, but Just the progression here is kind of awkward. And then, just kind of curve out from here. So once again, we're talking more about mulligans, not necessarily progressions, but it doesn't hurt to look at our progression for the first turn or two. So once again, taking a look at this opening hand, triple Lutz, a little bit awkward. If we were on the play of this hand, I think is very good. Swiss Spear into lay up a stage on 2, or Lava Dart and lay up a stage, and just finding ways to progress from there. So this hand would be a keep, but once again, we're looking for 1 land mulligan decisions. This hand as a 2-lander is pretty reasonable. I think we would put back Bone Crusher Giant. So this would be a keep, put back Bone Crusher, and then progress dude into bolt. But not a whole lot here to discuss with this hand, as it was, one of the pretty good progressions with the prowess hands. So I'm beginning to wonder if the shuffler in this is like rigged like the best of 1 shuffler in Arena, because we're not getting very many 1-landers out of this deck, which I seem to get a lot of in leagues. Alright, this hand, once again, good progression. Blister Coil Weird into Stomp, or Blister Coil Weird into Bolt, into Seasoned Pyromancer. So very good hand overall. We're in a mulligan, once again looking for a 1-land decision here. This isn't really providing us with much. We'd keep this hand, mulligan the mountain, and then obviously progress like Blister Coil Weird into Soul Scar Mage, or Soul Scar Mage into Blister Coil Weird. Have Lava Dart into Firebolt, or drawing Bolt. Pretty good progression overall. So really kind of hard to argue with this hand. So let's try once again for our elusive one. All right, finally, we're looking at a 1-lander that is an interesting decision. So I think overall, both on the play and on the draw, I would probably mulligan this hand. On the play, has a lot of potential with Blister Coil Weird into Swift Spear, into Bolt, and Firebolt. So maybe just this 5-card hand is good enough. On the draw, it gets a little bit easier. So for posterity's sake, I would probably mulligan this hand, but just to see how it would play out, I'm going to go ahead and keep. And we draw Burst Lightning, which would be our draw. If we're on the play, it would be our first draw. So we wouldn't draw a land until turn 2, or turn 3, I should say. To attack here, which is nice. Okay, that's our draw. Pretend the mountain was the draw for the turn. We'd get to go Firebolt, target something. Nice progression here. Do the thing. Burst Lightning, do the thing. So this is turn 3 effectively. And then draw for the next turn. Draw Blister Coil Weird here, and then we bolt things. And if our opponent had done any damage to themselves, they'd be dead on turn 4. So overall, that hand was a gamble worth keeping, but let's see if we can find another 1-lander to take a look at. Once again, we've had enough 3-land good spell progression hands. Not really particularly interested in talking about those. Swift Spear into a couple of spells, or Swift Spear into Stomp, into Bone Crusher Giant, plus follow-up spells. So this is an interesting hand. So we'll take a look at this particular 1-lander. On the play, I don't think this hand, even as a 6-card hand, is keepable. On the draw, which is what we're going to pretend this is, I think this is a hand worth taking a look at. Looking at this hand progression-wise, this is more of an attrition mid-range hand, obviously. So we could argue, let's say, put back one of the light up the stages, or one of the bolts here. Kind of hope to keep and hit a land. We hit a Swift Spear on the draw, so hopefully, and then we hit a that. So looks like this gamble would not have paid off. Even if we were to Lutz here, let's just yield through turn. Pretend that the Lutz was the next thing. So we would have had a land off of the Lutz, but I think if our Swift Spear had died, this hand would not have panned out quite well, even on the draw. So that was an interesting progression of a 6-card hand that just was too risky, even a Swift Spear being our first draw, because you need like 2 mana to go burst one of these spells into light up the stage, and then, you know, obviously Pyromancer can dig us out of things, but, you know, you have the problem of this hand just not panning out. So take a look. Hopefully we'll find another one. This is a hand we're talking about, but I do think this hand's a keep, both on the play and on the draw. Lava Dart in the lay up the stage, or Firebolt in the lay up the stage. You get to see a lot of cards, kind of a controlling hand. You know, when looking at, you know, 4 to 6 extra cards, you're quite likely to find a threat while still having spells in hand. So this hand would be a keep, but once again, we're kind of on the hunt for one-landers. This hand is nowhere near keepable as a one-lander. Too many expensive spells in your hand. Even with Blister Coil Weird, you have no way to really recoup with Light Up the Stage and such or anything. So this hand would be a mulligan as a one-lander on the play or the draw. This hand also would likely be a mulligan, you know, as a one-lander here, just from, you know, once again, kind of expensive spells. And this hand would be a mulligan to whatever. And then this hand is a one-lander. We are going to keep this hand. The hand of Swift Spear, Light Up the Stage, and Lava Dart's probably reasonable enough. Put back. Actually, we'd have to put back that. Lava Dart, kind of hope that we get there with this stuff. And it looks like we're going to progress decently. But definitely an interesting look at one-landers. And then we'd get to Lava Dart and the lay up the stage, and even on a mulligan to, what, 3 here? Hand seems pretty functional. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video with kind of a follow-up thing here quickly. So kind of a quick follow-up. You know, we took a look at probably a good, what, almost 24 hands or so. I think the one takeaway from that is overall, the deck does seem to mulligan pretty well, and doesn't actually seem to mulligan all that much from 2 and 3 land hands. As far as the basis of the 1 land hands, I think it's a lot of, do you have ways to see more cards to draw more lands? So I think the key is having like multiple 1-drops, especially creatures, and lay up the stage as kind of your baseline, and obviously be more willing to keep one-landers on the draw than on the play. One-landers on the play just don't tend to pan out all that much unless it has like a very high, like say 3 1-drop creatures and a couple spells and maybe lay up the stage. You know, there were some one-landers there that were like, you know, Blister Coil Weird Monster, Swift Spear, land, and like a Firebolt. Those hands are defensible as a keep, especially if you have a light up the stage to recoup. A little bit hard to test out light up the stage with the way it's like set up with the soloing there. But I do think that's kind of like the thing. And then a lot of those hands where you have like one drop, 1 land, and then the more expensive like Bone Crusher Giant, Seasoned Pyromancer, those are kind of pretty clear mulligans. The hands that are kind of the debatable ones are like the 1/1 creature, light up the stage, 1 land, and then a bunch of spells. I think those ones are borderline, and I don't think they tended to pan out for us when we tried them out a little bit. But I think the thing is on the draw, be more willing to want to keep them. Especially with like a couple of creatures and a lay up the stage kind of being the bare minimum for those kind of keeps. And on the play, just don't really keep those 1 land hands. And as you saw, this deck tends to mulligan pretty well, and between Light Up the Stage and Seasoned Pyromancer, this version is going to see a lot of cards, plus Bone Crusher Giant being, you know, its own kind of 2-for-1. Don't be afraid to mulligan aggressively when you see those one-landers. And even some of the hands where, you see, like, no creatures, if you have, like, a lay up a stage or, one-drop creatures, like, you have a lay up a stage or a seasoned pyro, don't be afraid to play kind of a mid-range game with this deck a little bit. I know Hayashi has been working more recently. His builds have tended more towards the mid-range version anyway. Like we've done some work with like the Channeler versions and some stuff, but he's definitely gone even further toward the mid-range thing and still having quite a bit of success. But I do think this Obosh version is still quite good. But as far as the Mulligan decisions, I think that's kind of plays things out. So hopefully, Puppa Joe, that answers your question.